Hello friends, welcome to EPG Pathshala. Today I am going to tell you about the National Water Policy 2012. After hearing to this lecture, you will be able to understand the concerns that are there regarding water policy. The three water policies so far, what is the difference between these three water policies and the salient features of the water policy of 2012. Now let us start with the introduction. Water is a basic human necessity and a scarce natural resource. Although 3/4 of the total surface of the earth is covered with water, but very scarce fresh water is available that is fit for consumption. Out of this fresh water also, the majority, or you can say 75% of the water is frozen in polar regions. That means that less than 25% of the water is available as underground water or the water that is there in lakes, rivers, vegetation, atmosphere, soil, etc. Along with this rarity of the water, there is another problem, that is there is uneven spatial disparity. Hello friends, welcome to EPG Pathshala. Today I am going to tell you about the National Water Policy 2012. After hearing this lecture, you will be able to understand first what are the concerns regarding the management of water resources. Second, as far as India is concerned, three water policies have been framed so far. The water policy of 1987, the water policy of 2002 and the water policy of 2012. So you will be able to understand and compare that what is the difference between these three water policies and the reasons for the passage of each of these three water policies. In addition to this, you will be able to understand the salient features of the National Water Policy of 2012. Now, before we start with the National Water Policy of 2012, let us see how important is water as a resource to us. As you all know that water is required for basic sustenance of not only animals or human beings but of the entire environment. The plants, they can also not sustain without water. Although if we see, then 3/4 of the earth's surface is covered with water, but the majority of the water is there in seas. That means the water which is not fit for consumption. Very rare water is available for consumption, and out of this water that is available for consumption, the majority is frozen in polar regions. It is only that this water that is available with us in lakes, rivers or as underground water, or the water that is there in the atmosphere, or the water that is present as moisture, or the water that is present in the vegetation, that can be consumed and utilized by human beings. So basically the thing is that how to consume and what should be the policy of the government regarding this water so that it can be sustained and it can be used. Now let us start from the beginning. And it was in the year 1983, in the month of March, when the National Water Resources Council was set up by the Government of India under the chairmanship of Prime Minister. This council adopted the National Water Policy of 1987. This was the first water policy that was adopted in India. In 1990, the Government of India constituted the National Water Board with Secretary, Ministry of Water Resources as the chairman, chief secretaries of all states and UTs, secretaries of the concerned union ministries and chairman of the Central Water Commission, who were the members of this board. The board was constituted in order to review the progress of the implementation of the National Water Policy of 1987. After reviewing, it resulted in a revised policy which is known as the National Water Policy of 2002. Thereafter, a need was again felt to revise this policy. This resulted in the formation of National Water Policy of 2012. The reasons for the revision of the policy are the changing needs and change in the perspective of water resources planning, change in water allocation priorities, and etc. Now, you can compare the three national water policies and you can see that the National Water Policy of 1987 and 2002, here the main perspective was national perspective, whereas the 2012 policy considers local, regional and national context in its perspective. As far as the water allocation priorities were concerned, in 1987 and 2002, drinking water was accorded the highest priority, followed by irrigation, hydropower, navigation, industries, etc. However, in the 2012 policy, the safe drinking water and sanitation has been defined as preemptive needs, followed by high priority allocation for other domestic needs, including the need for animals, achieving food security, supporting sustenance, agriculture and minimum ecosystem needs. Now, as far as the access to safe drinking water is concerned, adequate drinking water facilities should be provided to the entire population, both in urban and rural areas. This was what was mainly considered in the 1987 policy. As far as 2002 policy was concerned, adequate safe drinking water facilities should be provided to the entire population, both in urban and in rural areas. Whereas in 2012, the policy states that the minimum quality of potable water for essential health and hygiene to all its citizens should be available within reach of the household, and this must be ensured by the government. Now, if we have understood that what is the difference between the policies, let us move to see what was the reason with which the water policy of 2012 was passed. Now, there are numerous reasons which led to the passage of water policy of 2012. Let us start with the first reason. First is, large parts of the country have become water stressed. Rapid growth in demand of water due to population growth, urbanization and changing lifestyle pose and is posing serious challenges to water security. Secondly, issues related to water governance have not been adequately addressed so far. There is a wide temporal and spatial variation in availability of water, which may further increase with time. Access to safe water for drinking and other domestic needs still continues to be a problem in many areas. Further, access to water for sanitation and hygiene is more serious problem. Although groundwater is a community resource, but it is still perceived as an individual property. In addition to it, there are interregional, interstate, intrastate and also intersectoral disputes in sharing of water. Natural water bodies and drainage channels are being encroached upon and diverted for other purposes. Water pollution is growing at a catastrophic rate. There is low consciousness about the overall scarcity and economic value of water. There is lack of adequate trained personnel for scientific planning and water management. Therefore, a holistic and interdisciplinary approach for water related problems is missing. The public agencies that are in charge of taking water related decisions tend to take this on their own without consultation with the other stakeholders. The water resource availability and quality is changing. Plus, there is grossly inadequate maintenance of the existing irrigation infrastructure, which results in wastage and underutilization of water resources. Thus, there is a widening gap between irrigation potential created and utilized. Now, these are all the factors which have led to the passage of water policy of 2012. Let us see what is the objective of this policy of 2012. The objective of National Water Policy of 2012 is, first, to take cognizance of the existing situation. Second, to propose a framework for creation of system of laws and institutions. And third, to prepare a plan of action with a unified national perspective. Now moving forward, let us see what principles are to be followed while planning, development and management of these water resources. Planning, management and development of water resources need to be governed by common integrated perspective considering local, regional, state and national context. Principle of equity and social justice must inform use and allocation of water. There should be intensive participation in the decision making and regulating of water resources. Water needs to be managed under the public trust doctrine as a common pool community resource. Water is essential for sustenance of ecosystem and therefore minimum ecological needs should be given due consideration. While allocating water, safe water for drinking and sanitation should be considered as preemptive needs, followed by high priority allocation for other domestic needs such as those of needs for animal. River basins should be considered as the basic hydrological unit for planning. There is also need to focus on demand management. For this, an agriculture system which economizes on water use needs to be evolved. Water quality and quantity are interlinked and therefore there is a need to impose penalties in order to reduce water pollution and wastage. The impact of climate change on water resource availability must be taken into account while making water management related decisions. Now let us understand that what are the salient features of this water policy of 2012. Water is an extremely important resource which is scarce. There are many concerns regarding water management. Planning and development of water resources need to be governed by national perspectives. In view of this, national policy of 2012 regarding water was framed. The salient features of this policy are: first, water is a prime natural resource, a basic human need and a precious national asset. Planning, development and management of water resources need to be governed by national perspective. There is need to draft National Water Framework Law. Awareness about water scarcity should be fostered. A well-developed information system for water-related data at national, state level should be established with the network of data banks and databases integrating and strengthening the existing central and state level agencies. Water resources available to the country should be brought within the category of utilizable resources to the maximum possible extent. Non-conventional methods for utilization of water such as through inter-basin transfers, artificial recharge of groundwater and desalination of brackish or seawater as well as traditional water conservation practices like rainwater harvesting need to be practiced to further increase the utilizable water resources. Promotion of frontier research and development in a focused manner for these techniques is necessary. Water resource development and management will have to be planned for a hydrological unit. Appropriate river basin organizations should be established for the planned development and management of river basins. Water should be made available to water short areas by transfer from other areas, including transfer from one river basin to another after taking into account the requirement of the areas or basins. Planning of water resources development project should be for multi-purpose with an integrated and multidisciplinary approach having regard to human and ecological aspects, including those who belong to the disadvantaged section of the society. While allocating water, priority should be given as follows. First of all, for drinking water. Second, irrigation. Third, hydropower. Fourth, ecology. Fifth, agro-industries and non-agriculture industries. Sixth, navigation and other uses. The exploitation of groundwater should be regulated with reference to recharge possibilities and consideration. Adequate emphasis need to be given to the physical and financial sustainability of existing water resource facilities. There is need to ensure that water charges for various uses should be fixed, such as to cover at least the operation and maintenance charges initially and a part of the capital cost subsequently. Management of water resources for diverse uses should Incorporate a participatory approach by involving users and other stakeholders along with various government agencies. Private sector participation should also be encouraged in planning, development and management of water resource projects. Both surface water and groundwater should be regularly monitored for quality. Effluents should be treated to acceptable levels and standards before discharging them. Efficiency of utilization should be improved in all diverse uses of water and conservation consciousness promoted through education, regulation, incentives and disincentives. Land erosion by sea or river should be minimized by suitable cost-effective measures. There is a need of recognizing the drought-prone areas, and these drought-prone areas should be given priority in the planning of projects for development of water resources. The water sharing or distribution among the states should be guided by a national perspective. And lastly, there is a need to train and make research in the field of water resource development. Now let us start with the need for Water Framework Law. The National Water Policy of 2012 emphasizes that there is a need to evolve a national framework law for water management. This law must recognize water not only as a scarce resource but also as a sustainer of life and ecology. It must recognize that water needs to be managed as a community resource by states under the public trust doctrine so that the food security, livelihood and equitable and sustainable development for all are achieved. The existing acts like the Indian Easements Act, etc., that give proprietary rights to a landowner on groundwater under his land rather than treating it as a community resource need to be amended. Adaptation to climate change. Climate change is likely to increase the variability of water resources affecting human health and livelihood. The different adaptation strategies that needs to be adopted are: first, increasing water storage in the form of soil moisture, pond, groundwater, small and large reservoirs. Second, better demand management of water through the adoption of compatible agriculture strategies and cropping patterns. Third, stakeholder participation in land soil water management with scientific inputs from local research and academic institutions. And fourth, planning and management of water resource structures such as dams, flood embankments and tidal embankments. Enhancing water availability for use. The availability of water is limited, but the demand of water is increasing rapidly due to growing population, rapid urbanization, rapid industrialization and economic development. Therefore, the availability of water for utilization needs to be augmented. The policy of 2000 suggests that the following ways should be adopted to augment the water available for utilization. These measures are: first, rainfall needs to be used directly and inadvertent evaporation of water needs to be avoided. Secondly, aquifers need to be mapped to know the quantum and quality of groundwater resources, and local community should be involved in this process. Third, declining groundwater level in overexploited areas need to be arrested by introducing improved technologies of water use and encouraging community-based management of aquifers. Interbasin transfer of water from surplus basin to deficient basin needs to be encouraged. This should be encouraged not merely for increasing production but also for meeting the basic human need and achieving equity and social justice. Integrated watershed development activities like groundwater perspectives need to be undertaken to increase soil moisture, reduce sediment yield and increase overall land and water productivity. For this, existing programs such as Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act may be used by farmers to harvest rainwater using farm ponds and other soil and water conservation measures. Demand management and water use efficiency. There is need to use water efficiently. The policy suggests a number of methods in order to promote and incentivize the efficient use of water. The methods are: first, systems to benchmark water use such as water footprints, and water auditing should be developed. Second, project appraisals and environment impact assessment for water uses, particularly for industrial projects, should include analysis of water footprints. Third, recycle and reuse of water, including return flows, should be the general norm. Fourth, water needs to be saved during irrigation. Methods to encourage water saving irrigation techniques should be encouraged. Small local level irrigation through small bunds, field ponds, agriculture and engineering methods for watershed development need to be encouraged. And lastly, users of water should be involved in monitoring the pattern of water use if it is causing problems like unacceptable depletion or building up of groundwater salinity, alkalinity, etc. Water pricing. The water pricing should be governed by following principles. First, the water charges should preferably be a rule to be determined on volumetric basis. Such charges should be reviewed periodically. Secondly, the principle of differential pricing may have to be retained for the preemptive uses of water for drinking and sanitation, and high priority allocation for ensuring food security and supporting livelihood for the poor. After this, the water should be allocated and priced according to economic principles. Next, a water regulatory authority should be established in each state. The authority shall be responsible for fixing and regulating the water tariff system and charges that are to be levied. Next, recycle and reuse of water should be incentivized through a properly planned tariff system. Water users associations should be given statutory powers to collect and retain a portion of water charges, manage the volumetric quantum of water allotted to them, and maintain the distribution system in their jurisdiction. The overdraw of groundwater should be minimized by regulating the use of electricity for its extraction. Conservation of river corridors, water bodies and infrastructure. Conservation of river corridors, water bodies and infrastructure should be undertaken in a regulated and scientifically planned manner through community participation. Encroachments and diversion of water bodies and drainage channels must not be allowed. Wherever such diversions have taken place, they should be restored. Pollution of sources of waters and water bodies should not be allowed. Water bodies should be periodically inspected by a third party, and stringent punitive action should be taken against persons responsible for pollution. It is more important to ensure that the pollution does not reach groundwater, because groundwater cleansing is more difficult. Legally empowered dam safety services need to be ensured in the center as well as states. Project planning and implementation. Considering the existing water stress conditions and the likelihood of further worsening of the situation, water resource projects should be planned as per these water efficiency benchmarks. All clearances, including environment and investment clearances required for implementation of projects, should be made time bound to avoid the economic losses incurred due to delay in implementation. To avoid time and cost overruns, concurrent monitoring at project, state and central level should be undertaken for timely interventions. All components of water resource projects should be executed closely after they are planned, so that the intended benefits start occurring immediately and there is no gap between potential created and utilized. Local governing bodies such as panchayats, municipalities, corporations, etc. should be involved in the planning of projects. Next is management of floods and droughts. While efforts should be made to avert water related disasters like floods or droughts, greater emphasis should be laid on the preparedness for floods and droughts. Emphasis should also be placed on rehabilitation of the natural drainage system. For this, strategies should be used to improve soil and water productivity to manage droughts. Revetments, spurs, embankments, etc. should be constructed on the basis of morphological studies to prevent soil erosion. Flood forecasting should be expanded to the rest of country and modernized using real-time data acquisition system. Operating procedures for reservoirs should be evolved and implemented so as to have a flood cushion and reduce trapping of sediment during flood season. Protecting all areas prone to floods and droughts may not be practicable, and therefore frequency-based flood inundation maps should be prepared. Emergency action plans should be prepared for sudden and unexpected flood-related disaster. Water supply and sanitation. There is a need to remove the large disparity between stipulations for water supply in urban areas and rural areas. In order to do this, effort should be made to provide improved water supply in rural areas with proper sewerage facilities. Least water intensive sanitization and sewerage systems with decentralized sewerage treatment plants should be incentivized. Urban and rural domestic water supply should preferably be from surface water in conjunction with groundwater and rainwater. Reuse of urban water effluents from kitchens and bathrooms after primary treatment in flush toilets should be encouraged, ensuring no human contact. In urban and industrial areas, rainwater harvesting and desalination should be encouraged to increase availability of utilizable water. Urban water supply and sewerage treatment schemes should be integrated and executed simultaneously. Water supply bills should include sewerage charges. Subsidies and incentives should be implemented to encourage the recovery of industrial pollutants and recycling, which are otherwise capital incentive. Institutional arrangements. There should be a forum at the national level and state level to evolve consensus, cooperation and reconciliation on issues relating to water. In order to ensure this, a permanent water disputes tribunal should be established at the center to resolve disputes expeditiously. The path of arbitration and mediation may also be tried in order to solve dispute resolution. Communities should participate in the management of water resource projects and services. State governments or local authorities can encourage the private sector to become a service provider through public-private partnerships. Integrated water resource management should be the main principle for planning, development and management of water resource. Appropriate institutional arrangements for each river basin should be developed to collect and collate all data on regular basis. Appropriate institutional arrangements for each river basin should also be developed for monitoring water quality in both surface and groundwater. States should be encouraged and incentivized to undertake reforms and progressive measures for innovation, conservation and efficient utilization of water resources. Transboundary rivers. Efforts should be made to enter into international agreements with neighboring countries on a bilateral basis for exchange of hydrological data of international rivers on real-time basis. Riparian states should be consulted during negotiations about sharing and management of water of international rivers, keeping national interest in mind. Database and information system. All hydrological data other than those classified should be put into public domain. A national water informatics center should be established to process hydrological data regularly from all over the country. More data about snow and glaciers, evaporation, tidal hydrology and hydraulics, river geometry changes, erosion, etc. needs to be collected. All water related data should be maintained online in order to facilitate informed decision making in the management of water. Research and training. Continuing research and advancement in technology shall be promoted to address issues in the water sector in a scientific manner. Innovations in water resources sector should be encouraged, recognized and awarded. Grants should be given to states to update technology, design practices and planning and management practices. An autonomous center for research in water policy should be established to evaluate impact of policy decision and evolve policy directives. To meet the demand of skilled manpower in the water sector, regular training and academic courses in water management should be promoted. A national campaign for water literacy needs to be started for capacity building of stakeholders in the water sector. Implementation of this policy. The National Water Board should prepare a plan of action based on national water policy as approved by the National Water Resource Council and monitor its implementation. State water policies should also be drafted, revised in accordance with this policy. To conclude, water is a scarce natural resource. It is required by human beings, animals, and in order to maintain the ecological balance in the nature. The water that is available for use is scarce, and in addition to it, we have the problem of unequal spatial distribution. This problem is further augmented by situations like floods and droughts. The National Water Policy of 2012 addresses the issues so that the water that is available can be utilized in a proper manner. The policy needs to be implemented in its spirit, and in order to ensure its implementation, the Water Board should take and prepare a plan of action. Together with it, the states should also reframe its policies so that the water, which is a natural asset, is maintained and the resources are managed properly. Thank you.